The Grand Assembly Hall of Viridian 7 had never been this loud. 847 species filled the massive chamber, and every single one of them was arguing. The translators struggled to keep up with the chaos of voices, clicks, whistles, and telepathic pulses that bounced off the crystalline walls. Captain Daewon Kim stood in the human delegation area, arms crossed, watching the panic unfold. He had seen fear before. He had commanded ships through asteroid fields and survived encounters with hostile aliens. But this was different. This was the fear of an entire galaxy facing extinction. The holographic display at the center of the hall showed the problem in brutal detail. A red mass spread across the star map like a disease. The void swarm. It consumed everything in its path, planets, stars, space stations. Nothing survived. And it was moving fast, faster than anyone had predicted. All evacuation routes through the Kepler passage are blocked, announced Envoy Siltrex, his reptilian features twisted in frustration. The swarm has cut off 3 major hyperspace lanes. We have weeks, not months. A wave of frightened sounds filled the hall. Daewon glanced at Dr. Hannah Park, who stood beside him. She was younger than most chief scientists, barely 35, but her mind worked faster than any computer he had ever seen. Right now she looked calm. Too calm. You have a plan, Daewon said quietly. I have an idea, Hannah replied. Whether it counts as a plan depends on how much you trust physics. I trust you. You might regret that. High Counselor Vextroth raised one of his 6 legs, and the room fell silent. The ancient insectoid had lived for 12,000 years. When he spoke, people listened. His voice came through the translators as a dry whisper that somehow commanded absolute attention. We face a choice, Vextroth said. We can evacuate through conventional routes and save perhaps 20% of our populations. Or we can stand and fight a battle we cannot win. Does anyone have another option? Hannah stepped forward. Daewon felt his stomach tighten. He knew that look on her face. It was the same look she had before proposing ideas that made other scientists call her crazy. High Counselor. I have a third option, Hannah said. Her voice carried across the hall, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. We go through Sagittarius Theta. The silence lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then the hall exploded. Impossible. Suicide. The human has lost her mind. Daewon watched as hundreds of aliens shouted, clicked, and telepathically screamed their objections. Only Vextroth remained still, his compound eyes focused on Hannah with what might have been curiosity. Explain, the High Counselor commanded. Hannah activated her personal display. A black hole appeared in holographic form above her head, its event horizon swirling with distorted light. Sagittarius Theta. It sat almost perfectly between their current position and the safe zones on the far side of the galaxy. Black holes are not death traps, Hannah began. They are shortcuts through space-time. My team has been studying gravitational manipulation for 15 years. We have identified stable pathways through the ergosphere that would allow a properly shielded ship to transit from one side to the other. Ridiculous, spat Chancellor Thex Mora, his amphibious body rippling with agitation. 47 civilizations have attempted black hole transit throughout history. 47 civilizations died. We have the records. You have records of failed attempts, Hannah countered. Failures teach us what not to do. My calculations account for every documented mistake. The key is not to fight the gravity, but to use it. Think of it like surfing a wave. Surfing? Siltrex hissed. This is not a human recreational activity. This is physics that has killed billions. Physics does not kill, Daewon said, stepping forward to stand beside Hannah. Ignorance kills. Fear kills. Giving up kills. Physics is just the rules of the universe, and humans have gotten pretty good at finding loopholes. Vextroth made a clicking sound that the translators interpreted as thoughtful consideration. Captain Kim, you support this proposal? With respect, High Counselor, I do more than support it. Earth Fleet has been running simulations based on Dr. Park's theories for 6 months. We have successfully modeled the transit 17 times. The survival probability is 73%. 73%, Thex Mora repeated mockingly. You would bet billions of lives on a 27% chance of death? I would bet billions of lives on a 73% chance of survival, Daewon replied. Especially when the alternative is 100% death. The hall erupted again. Daewon could see the division forming. Some species looked interested, calculating the odds. Others looked horrified at the very suggestion. A few looked at the humans with a mixture of awe and terror, as if watching someone juggle live grenades. Admiral Taimin Choi, the Earth Fleet commander, joined them at the center. He was older than Daewon, gray-haired and scarred from decades of service. He had the kind of face that made junior officers stand straighter, and enemies reconsider their choices. The human delegation formally proposes a volunteer expedition, Taimin announced. We will attempt transit of Sagittarius Theta. If we succeed, we will send back navigational data and prove the route is viable. If we fail, you lose one ship instead of a civilization. If you fail, you die, Siltrek said. Why would you take this risk? Daewon smiled. Because someone has to go first. That is what humans do. We go first, we fail, we learn, and then we go again. We kept trying to fly even after hundreds of crashes. We kept going to space even after explosions. We kept exploring even when everyone said stop. It is not bravery. It is just how we are built. Vextroth was silent for a long moment. His ancient eyes studied the three humans standing before the galaxy. Finally he spoke. The Council will vote on the evacuation routes, but I will not stop you from attempting this. If you wish to test the impossible, Captain Kim, you have my permission to try. Know that I have watched civilizations rise and fall for 12 millennia. In all that time, I have never seen anyone survive a black hole. High Counselor, Hana said respectfully, you have never seen a human try. The voting began. As expected, the Council rejected the black hole route. They chose conventional evacuation, knowing most would die because it was the safe choice. The known choice. Fear beat hope by a margin of 612 votes to 235. But Daewon had expected this. Humans rarely won arguments by talking. They won by doing. 3 hours later, he stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon's Edge. His crew of 200 humans had volunteered without hesitation. A handful of alien scientists who believed in the impossible had joined them. In the observation deck, Krillvax, a crystalline alien with 4 arms, set up recording equipment to document what he expected to be a noble death. All systems green, reported Lieutenant Jae-hee Song from navigation. She was young, barely 26, but she could plot a course through a meteor storm blindfolded. Course set for Sagittarius Theta. Engineering ready, added Bon Huan Lee, his voice crackling over the comm. The engines are running better than they have any right to. I have said 3 prayers and sacrificed a good wrench to the gods of duct tape. We are as ready as we will ever be. Daewon looked at Hana, who sat at the science station, her eyes glowing with excitement and terror in equal measure. Last chance to admit this is crazy, he said. It is absolutely crazy, Hana replied. But the math works, probably. Probably? 73% probably. Daewon laughed. He activated the ship-wide comm. This is the captain. We are about to do something that everyone says is impossible. If we succeed, we save billions of lives. If we fail, well, at least we fail doing something spectacular. Either way, it has been an honor serving with you. Helm, take us out. The ESS Horizon's Edge pulled away from Viridian 7. Behind them, the galaxy watched and waited. Ahead of them, a black hole waited like an open mouth in space. Nobody expected them to come back. That was about to change. The black hole was beautiful in a way that made your brain hurt. Daewon stood on the bridge of the Horizon's Edge, watching Sagittarius Theta grow larger on the view screen. Light bent around it in impossible spirals, creating rings of distorted starlight that swirled like water going down a drain. Except this drain led to a point where physics stopped making sense and mathematics broke down into infinity. Distance to event horizon, 3 million kilometers in closing, Jae-hee reported. Her hands moved across the navigation console with steady precision, but Daewon could see the slight tremor in her fingers. Time dilation is beginning to affect our clocks. We are now running 4 seconds slower than Viridian 7 standard time. 4 seconds. In 3 days, that gap would stretch to hours, then days. Time itself was becoming flexible, stretching like taffy the closer they got to the event horizon. Hana moved between stations, checking readings, adjusting calculations, muttering to herself in a mixture of Korean and scientific jargon. She had barely slept since they left Viridian 7. Every simulation ran through her head on an endless loop, searching for variables they might have missed. How are you feeling, Hana? Daewon asked quietly. Terrified and excited, she replied without looking up. Ask me again in 6 hours when we start the real approach. If my calculations are wrong, we will die in about 12 different ways. All of them horrible. That is reassuring. I try my best. Down in engineering, Bonwan Lee was having a heated argument with the laws of physics. The structural integrity fields were holding, but the gravitational stress was already pushing the ship beyond its design specifications. He had reinforced every critical system twice, rerouted power through backup channels, and turned off anything that was not essential to keeping them alive. The hull is complaining, Bon Juan reported over the comm. She is making sounds that metal should not make. But she will hold. I have told her she has no choice. You talked to the ship? Asked Yuki Tanaka, the medical officer, who was checking stress levels on the crew. Of course I talked to the ship, Bon Juan replied. She is keeping us alive. The least I can do is be polite. In the observation deck, Krillvax had stopped taking notes. The crystalline alien stood perfectly still, his forearms frozen in place, staring at the black hole with what humans would recognize as existential dread. Daewon found him there during a brief break from the bridge. Still think we are crazy? Daewon asked. I no longer think you are crazy, Krillvax replied slowly. I think you are something worse. You are right, and that terrifies me more than anything. Why? Because if humans can survive this, what else might be possible? My species has spent 10,000 years accepting certain truths. Black holes kill. Faster than light travel requires hyperspace lanes. Some things are simply impossible. But you do not accept these truths. You test them, and if they break, you smile and move forward. This is not how the galaxy works. Maybe that is the problem, Daewon said. Maybe the galaxy has been working wrong. The next 2 days passed in a strange blur. Time continued to stretch. Communications with Viridian 7 became increasingly delayed. By the second day, their 6-hour lag meant that messages took half a day to reach them. They were falling into a time well, slowly disconnecting from the rest of the universe. The crew handled it better than expected. Humans adapted. Some meditated, others exercised. A few wrote letters to loved ones they might never see again. Yuki kept everyone's stress hormones monitored, dispensing mild sedatives to those who needed them. Jae-hee ran drill after drill on the navigation console. The actual transit would require split-second timing and adjustments measured in microseconds. One wrong calculation, one moment of hesitation, and the tidal forces would rip them apart. We are approaching the ergosphere, Hana announced on day 3. Her voice carried a mixture of wonder and fear. This is where space-time begins to rotate with the black hole. From this point forward, we cannot escape without assistance. We are committed. Daewon felt the weight of that statement. Committed. No turning back. They would either thread the needle through the eye of infinity or die trying. All hands battle stations, he ordered. Seal all compartments. Redirect all non-essential power to structural integrity and inertial dampeners. Engineering, give me everything you have. You already have everything I have, Bon Juan replied. Now you're getting things I borrowed from Murphy's Law. If this works, physics owes me an apology. The ship shuddered as they entered the ergosphere. Gravity grabbed them and pulled them into a spiraling descent. The stars outside twisted into long streaks of light. The black hole now dominated the entire view screen, its event horizon a perfect circle of absolute darkness surrounded by a halo of tortured light. Initiating approach vector, Jae-hee said. Her voice was steady now, all fear burned away by focus. 15 degrees downspin, matching the rotation. Speed increasing to 0.7 light speed, the ship groaned. Metal creaked. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems struggled to compensate for gravitational forces that should have crushed them flat. Structural integrity at 83%, Bon Juan reported. Holding, barely. Time dilation now at 27 hours per hour ship time, Hana said, reading off her instruments. We are falling through time as well as space. If we survive this, we will arrive at our destination significantly earlier than we left, relatively speaking. Daewon gripped his command chair as the ship shook harder. Through the view screen, he could see the event horizon approaching. The point of no return, according to every civilization in galactic history, crossing that line meant death. Nothing escaped a black hole, nothing. 30 seconds to event horizon, Jae-hee announced. Krillvax appeared on the bridge, magnetic grips keeping him attached to the floor. He had decided that if these insane humans were going to die, he would die with them on the bridge rather than alone in the observation deck. 20 seconds. All crew, brace for transit, Daewon ordered. If you believe in anything, now would be a good time to mention it. 10 seconds, Hana looked at Day One. He looked back. No words were necessary. They had bet everything on this moment. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The ESS Horizon's edge crossed the event horizon. Reality broke. Light bent backward. Time became a direction instead of a constant. The ship's sensors screamed with data that made no sense. They were inside a place where the normal rules did not apply. But they were still alive. I do not believe it, Krillvax whispered. We crossed the event horizon. We should be dead. Not yet, Hana said, her eyes locked on her screens. Now comes the hard part. We need to find the wormhole throat at the core. It should be directly ahead, hidden in the space between the event horizon and the singularity. Should be? Day One asked. 73% should be. The ship plunged deeper into the black hole. Outside, reality had become something else entirely. Colors that had no names, shapes that existed in too many dimensions. They were inside a tunnel of compressed space-time where physics operated on different rules. There, Jae-hee shouted. I see it. A stable pathway dead ahead. Structural integrity at 61%, Bon Juan warned. We are taking damage. Hull breaches on decks 5 and 7. Emergency force fields holding. Almost through, Hana urged. Keep going. We are so close, the pressure increased. The ship screamed. Day One could feel his bones creaking from the gravitational stress. Beside him, Krillvax had gone completely transparent, his crystalline structure refracting light in panic. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the pressure released. They burst out of the wormhole into normal space. Stars appeared on the view screen, steady and bright. The ship's sensors returned to showing normal readings. They were through. Status report, Day One ordered, his voice hoarse. Hull integrity at 57% but stable, Bon Juan replied. We have damage but nothing critical. No casualties. I cannot believe it. We survived. Position? Day One asked. Jae-hee worked her console, then froze. Her face went pale. Captain, according to stellar navigation, we are on the far side of the galaxy. We made it through. But there is something else. The timestamps on nearby beacons and the stellar drift patterns indicate we have traveled backward in time. We left Viridian 7 3 days ago, but according to the universe around us, we left 24 days from now. Silence filled the bridge. We went back in time? Krillvax asked weakly. Hana began laughing. It started as a giggle and built into full, slightly hysterical laughter. We did not just survive a black hole transit. We created a time machine. Do you understand what this means? We have 3 weeks to warn the galaxy before the void swarm hits. We can save everyone. Day One looked at the view screen at the stars they had reached by doing the impossible. Behind them, the black hole sat like a doorway through space and time. Set course for Viridian 7, he ordered, and someone send a message to the council. Tell them we found a shortcut. The silence in the briefing room was the kind that made your ears ring. Day One stood at the head of the table, watching his senior officers process what they had just learned. Time travel. It sounded like bad science fiction, but the evidence was undeniable. They had jumped backward through time by 3 weeks, give or take a day for relativistic effects. So we are ghosts, Lieutenant Jae-hee said slowly. Right now, in the present we left behind, we have not even departed Viridian 7 yet. We are having arguments with the council that already happened for us but have not happened for them. My head hurts, Bon Juan muttered. Time travel should not be possible. Physics should not allow this. Physics allows it, Hana corrected, her eyes bright with excitement. Black holes do not just warp space, they warp time. Einstein predicted it. We just proved it. The deeper you go into a gravity well, the slower time moves relative to the outside universe. But when you pass through a wormhole inside the event horizon, you do not just move through space, you move through time itself. Commander Sujin Yang, the first officer, leaned forward. She was logical, cautious, and currently looked deeply uncomfortable with the entire situation. What about paradoxes? If we change the past, do we create an alternate timeline? Do we erase ourselves from existence? I do not know, Hana admitted. The theories are unclear, but I think the universe is more flexible than we give it credit for. We exist, we made this journey. That is a fact that cannot be erased. Whatever we do now becomes part of the timeline that led us here. Krillvax, who had been silent throughout the meeting, finally spoke. In my culture, we have a religious principle. Time flows in one direction for a reason. To violate causality is to invite chaos. You humans have broken something fundamental about reality. I should be horrified, but, Daewon prompted. But you are right. Krillvax continued, his crystalline form shimmering with conflicted emotions. We can save billions of lives. How can I argue with that? My religion or the lives of entire civilizations? It should be an easy choice. Yet it feels wrong. It feels wrong because it is new, Daewon said. Everything humans have ever accomplished felt wrong at first. The first person to eat a mushroom probably felt very wrong about it. The first person to fly probably felt wrong leaving the ground. Wrong is just another word for unfamiliar. Min Seo Cho, the communications officer, had been listening to broadcasts from nearby systems. She looked up from her console, her face troubled. Captain, I am picking up distress calls. Multiple systems along our route are reporting attacks. The Void Swarm? Sujin asked. No, Min Seo replied. The timestamps on these distress calls are from the past 2 weeks. These attacks already happened from the perspective of local space. But they happened after we left our original timeline and before we arrived here. Daewon felt something click in his mind, which means we can respond to them now. We know they already happened, but for us, they are happening right now. Show me the locations. A star map appeared on the display. 3 systems showed red distress markers. All were within 2 days' travel of their current position. All had called for help that never came because the galaxy was too busy arguing about evacuation routes. If we help them, are we changing the timeline? Jaehee asked. I do not care, Daewon said firmly. There are people dying in those systems. We have the power to save them. We have a ship, weapons, and foreknowledge. The philosophical implications can wait until after we save lives. Sujin nodded slowly. I agree. But we need to be smart about this. We cannot be in 2 places at once. We need to choose which systems to help first based on maximum impact. Hana pulled up tactical data. The closest system is Helios 7. It is a mining colony with 80,000 inhabitants. The distress call says they are under attack by an unknown force. No mention of the Void Swarm, but the timing matches when the swarm began its preliminary scouting attacks. Set course for Helios 7, Daewon ordered. Maximum speed. We stop the attack and evacuate any civilians. Then we move to the next system. The ESS Horizon's Edge jumped to faster-than-light travel. The crew worked with renewed purpose. They were no longer just survivors of an impossible journey. They were time-traveling rescuers with the power to change fate itself. Helios 7 appeared in their view screens 36 hours later. The mining colony orbited a dim red star, its industrial platforms glittering against the dark. But something was wrong. Debris floated in orbit, pieces of ships and stations torn apart by something violent. Reading multiple life signs on the planet's surface, Min Seo reported, but the orbital stations are damaged. Looks like they evacuated to the planet when the attack started. Any sign of the attackers? Daewon asked. Negative. They are gone. But based on the damage patterns and residual energy signatures, this was definitely a Void Swarm scout group. They hit fast and left. Jaehee's console beeped. Captain, we are being hailed by the surface. They sound confused. Very confused. Put them through. A face appeared on the screen. Human male covered in dust and blood. His eyes were wide with shock. Who are you? How did you get here so fast? We sent out the distress call less than 2 days ago. There has not been enough time for anyone to respond. Daewon smiled. Let us just say we were in the neighborhood. This is Captain Daewon Kim of the ESS Horizon's Edge. We are here to help evacuate your people. Evacuate? But we sent the distress call before we knew how bad things were. The Council has not even authorized evacuation protocols yet. They will, Daewon assured him. Trust me. We know what is coming. Prepare your people to board. We will send down shuttles. The evacuation took 18 hours. The crew of the Horizon's Edge worked without rest, ferrying terrified miners and their families up from the planet's surface. Bon Juan rigged emergency life support in the cargo bays to accommodate the extra passengers. It was crowded and uncomfortable, but everyone was alive. The colony administrator, a woman named Park Ji-woo, cornered Daewon in the mess hall. How did you know to come? The attack just happened. Even if you received our distress call the moment we sent it, you could not have arrived this fast. Unless you were already on your way. It is complicated, Daewon replied. Try me. Daewon studied her face. She looked exhausted, traumatized, but intelligent. Her people had just survived an attack by an enemy that would eventually threaten the entire galaxy. She deserved something closer to the truth. "We came through Sagittarius Theta," he said quietly. "We traveled through a black hole and it sent us backward in time. We knew your colony would be attacked because, from our perspective, it already happened. We came back to stop it." Jiwoo stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, a harsh, slightly broken sound. "Time travel through a black hole. Of course, why not? The universe is ending, humans are insane, and nothing makes sense anymore. Fine, thank you for saving us, Captain. Whether you came from the past, future, or sideways through some dimension I cannot comprehend, thank you." They saved 2 more systems over the next week. Each time they arrived just after attacks that the locals had barely survived. Each time they evacuated civilians and left behind warnings about the greater threat coming. Each time the people they saved looked at them like they were ghosts or angels or both. The crew began to feel the weight of what they had done. They were changing history in small ways, saving thousands of lives that would have been lost. But they could not be everywhere. They could not save everyone. "We are making a difference," Sujin said during another briefing. "But it is not enough. 3 systems saved out of hundreds that will be attacked. We need to get back to Viridian 7 and convince the Council before the swarm arrives in force." "How do we convince them?" Jae-hee asked. "We are supposed to be dead. We're not even departed yet, depending on your perspective. If we show up now 3 weeks early, they will think we are imposters or hallucinations." "We show them the evidence," Hana said. "We have sensor logs, navigational data, time-stamped recordings. We have 80,000 rescued civilians who can testify that we saved them from attacks that have not officially happened yet. The proof is undeniable." Krilvax spoke up from the back of the room. "I will testify as well. I'm an official council observer. My word carries weight."
"If I tell them that you successfully transited Sagittarius Theta and traveled through time, they will have to listen. Will they believe you?"
Daewon asked. "No," Krilvax replied honestly. "But they will investigate. And investigation will lead to evidence. And evidence will lead to truth. It may take time, but truth has a way of being very stubborn." Minseo interrupted, her face pale. "Captain, you need to hear this. I have been monitoring subspace transmissions from Viridian 7. Long-range encrypted channels. There is a memorial service scheduled for 3 days from now." "A memorial service for what?" Sujin asked. "For us," Minseo replied. "For the crew of the ESS Horizon's Edge. We have been declared missing, presumed destroyed at Sagittarius Theta. The Council is holding a ceremony for the brave fools who died attempting the impossible." The room fell silent. Daewon felt a strange mixture of emotions. Sadness that people thought them dead. Anger at the Council for giving up on them so quickly. But also something else. Something that might have been satisfaction. "Good," he said finally. Everyone stared at him. "Good?" Bonhwan repeated. "They think we are dead and you say good?" "They declared us dead," Daewon said with a growing smile. "Which means when we show up alive, it will be very difficult to ignore us. Set course for Viridian 7, maximum speed. I want to arrive before our own memorial service ends. Let us give the Council the shock of their lives." The memorial service was beautiful in the way that funerals for heroes always are. High Counselor Vexitroth stood at the center of the Grand Assembly Hall, his ancient voice carrying across the gathered representatives. Holographic images of the ESS Horizon's Edge floated above him, along with the faces of the 200 crew members who had volunteered for the impossible mission. "They knew the risks," Vexitroth intoned. "They knew that no civilization in recorded history had survived transit of a black hole. Yet they went anyway." Captain Daewon Kim and his crew represented the best qualities of their species. Courage in the face of certain death, hope in the face of impossible odds, and the stubborn refusal to accept fate without challenge. In the human delegation area, Admiral Taemin Choi stood with his head bowed. He had argued against the mission. He had told Daewon it was suicide. He hated being right. "We honor their sacrifice," Vexitroth continued, "and we remember that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is admit when we are wrong." The human delegation proposed a solution that might have saved us all. We rejected it out of fear. Now we must live with that choice as the Void Swarm approaches, and our conventional evacuation routes prove insufficient. Envoy Siltrex shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had been one of the loudest voices against the black hole transit. Guilt was not an emotion his species felt often, but he felt something close to it now. The ceremony continued. Speeches were made. Condolences were offered. The galaxy mourned the loss of 200 brave fools who had dared to challenge physics itself. Then the alarm started. Red warning lights flashed throughout the hall. A ship had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel in restricted space near the station. Security protocols engaged automatically. Weapons systems came online. Unidentified vessel. You are in violation of Council space, the station's automated defense system announced. Identify yourself immediately. This is Captain Daewon Kim of the ESS Horizon's Edge, came the reply over every speaker in the hall. Requesting permission to dock. We have important information regarding the Void Swarm threat. Also, I understand you are having a memorial service for us. We would like to politely request that you cancel it, as we are not actually dead. The hall erupted into chaos. Bextroth's compound eyes widened. Siltrex jumped from his seat, his reptilian tail lashing in shock. Chancellor Thexmora began shouting that it was a trick, an imposter, impossible. Admiral Tae Min felt his legs go weak. He grabbed the railing in front of him for support. Computer, verify voice pattern. Is that Captain Kim? Voice pattern matches Captain Daewon Kim with 99.7% certainty, the computer replied calmly. Visual confirmation, Tae Min ordered. The holographic display shifted. Instead of memorial images, it now showed the bridge of the Horizon's Edge. Daewon sat in the captain's chair, looking tired but very much alive. Beside him stood Hana, Jaehee, and Krillvax. Behind them, the rest of the bridge crew worked their stations. Hello, Council, Daewon said with a slight smile. We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we needed to make sure we had your attention. Vexatroth recovered first. 12,000 years of experience had taught him to adapt quickly to the impossible.
Captain Kim, you're alive. How?
We successfully transited Sagittarius Theta, Daewon replied. Dr. Park's calculations were correct. We survived passage through the event horizon, navigated the wormhole at the core, and emerged on the far side of the galaxy. But there was an unexpected side effect. We also traveled backward in time by approximately 3 weeks. The hall filled with sounds of disbelief. Time travel. Black hole transit. Humans claiming to have violated the fundamental laws of physics and causality. It was too much. Prove it, demanded Chancellor Thexmora. Anyone can claim the impossible. Show us evidence. Observer Krillvax, your testimony, please, Daewon said. Krillvax stepped forward. His crystalline body refracted the lights of the bridge, creating small rainbows on the walls. I am a sworn council observer, appointed by this body to document the human expedition. I witnessed everything. We entered the black hole. We survived transit through the event horizon. We navigated a stable wormhole pathway exactly as Dr. Park predicted. We emerged alive on the far side of the galaxy. Everything Captain Kim says is true. I have detailed recordings of the entire journey. Recordings can be faked, Siltrex hissed. Can 80,000 rescued civilians be faked? Hana asked. She brought up new data on the display. While traveling back to Viridian 7, we encountered 3 systems that had been attacked by Void Swarm scouts. We evacuated the populations before they could be destroyed. These attacks have not happened yet from your perspective, but they have already happened in the timeline we came from. The survivors are currently aboard our ship. They can testify. We also have complete navigational data, Jaehee added, bringing up technical schematics. Entry vectors, gravitational calculations, power distribution patterns, structural stress logs. Everything you would need to replicate the transit yourselves. The council fell silent. The evidence was overwhelming. The testimony from an official observer was irrefutable. The technical data looked genuine, but accepting it meant accepting that humans had accomplished what every other civilization had failed to do for millennia. This is insane, Thexmora sputtered. You are asking us to believe that you violated causality itself, that you traveled backward through time. The implications alone could destabilize the fabric of reality. The fabric of reality seems quite stable to me, Daewon replied. We exist. The universe has not collapsed. Time continues to flow forward. We simply found a way to navigate it in a non-linear fashion. Bextroth raised a leg for silence. Captain Kim, if what you say is true, and I am beginning to believe it is, then you have brought us a gift beyond measure. But I must ask, if you are here now, 3 weeks early, what happens to the version of you that has not yet departed? The you that exists in this current timeline? He is here too, Day One said. We have been very careful to avoid ourselves. It creates awkward conversations. But yes, there are currently two versions of the Horizon's Edge crew in this timeline. The future version, which is us, and the past version, which is about to have the same argument with you that we had 3 weeks ago from our perspective. Admiral Taemin stood up. Permission to approach the display, High Counselor. Granted. Taemin walked to the center of the hall, staring at the image of Day One. Captain, I need to know. Is this real? No tricks, no deception. Did you actually survive a black hole? Yes, sir, Day One replied. We did, and we can do it again. More importantly, we can teach others how to do it. The route through Sagittarius Theta can save billions of lives, but only if you authorize evacuation through that route instead of the conventional paths. Some species may not survive the transit, Hana interjected. The gravitational stress is extreme. Species with fragile biology or weak structural materials will need special accommodations. But for species that can withstand the forces, the black hole is not a death trap. It is a shortcut. Siltrex stood slowly. I must apologize, Captain Kim. I called you reckless. I called your plan suicide. I was wrong. You have accomplished something that I believed was impossible. My species owes you a debt. No debt, Day One replied. We did what needed to be done. Now you need to do the same. Authorize the evacuation through Sagittarius Theta. We are running out of time. Vextroth turned to face the council. The evidence is clear. The testimony is verified. Captain Kim and his crew have proven that black hole transit is possible. I call for an emergency vote on authorization of the Sagittarius Theta evacuation route. Before you vote, Day One said, you should know that the Void Swarm will arrive 2 days earlier than predicted. We know because we lived through this timeline once already. You have less time than you think. The conventional routes will not be enough. How can we trust predictions about the future from someone who traveled from the future? Vexmora demanded. Because we have already been right about everything else, Hana replied simply. We told you we would survive the black hole, we did. We told you we saved 3 colonies from attacks, we did. We are telling you now that the swarm will arrive early. We will be right about that too. The vote was called. This time the outcome was different. Fear of the impossible had been replaced by evidence of the possible. The authorization passed by a margin of 703 votes to 144. Permission to dock granted, Captain Kim, Vextroth announced. We have much to discuss. The Horizon's Edge docked 3 hours later. Day One walked through the corridors of Viridian 7 with an odd sense of displacement. Everything was familiar but slightly wrong. Events that had happened for him weeks ago had not happened yet for the people around him. He turned a corner and stopped dead. Standing 20 meters away, talking to Admiral Taemin was himself. The other Day One had not departed yet. He was younger by 3 weeks, less tired, less marked by the stress of impossible journeys. He looked confident but uncertain, preparing to argue for a mission that everyone said was suicide. The 2 versions of Day One locked eyes across the corridor. Admiral Taemin noticed and went pale. This is deeply disturbing. The younger Day One approached slowly. He studied his older self with obvious curiosity. So I survive. We survive, the older Day One corrected, and it is exactly as terrible and wonderful as you imagine. Should we be talking? Paradoxes? I have no idea, but I think the universe is flexible enough to handle 2 of us having a conversation. I have one piece of advice for you. What? Trust Hana's calculations completely. When it feels like the ship is tearing apart, when every instinct says to turn back, trust the math. The numbers work. We make it through. The younger Day One smiled. Thank you, I think. Do not thank me, I am you. We are having a conversation with ourselves which is either profound or insane. Probably both. Definitely both. Admiral Taemin cleared his throat. Gentlemen, I hate to interrupt this philosophical crisis, but we have a galaxy to evacuate. Captain Kim, both of you. We need to begin training other crews on black hole navigation immediately. The swarm arrives in days. The 2 versions of Day One looked at each other one more time. Then the older one nodded and walked away, leaving his younger self to prepare for a journey he had already completed. Time travel, Day One decided, was going to give him a headache for years. Captain, we are the last group, Sujin reported. All other ships have transited or been destroyed. We are alone. Day One looked at the view screen. Behind them, Viridian 7 burned. The Council's great station, home to representatives from nearly 1,000 species, was dying. The swarm's gravitational weapon charged to full power, preparing to collapse everything into a point of infinite density. All ships, this is Captain Kim. We are going home. Follow us in. The ESS Horizon's Edge entered the black hole for the second time. The crew knew what to expect now, but that did not make it easier. Reality bent. Time became flexible. The ship screamed with stress as gravitational forces tried to rip it apart. But Bon Juan had reinforced every critical system. Jae-hee had plotted the course with perfect precision. Hana's calculations held true, and Daewon trusted his crew completely. They emerged on the far side of the galaxy, intact and alive. The rally point was filled with ships, nearly 1,500 vessels, representing the survivors of the greatest evacuation in galactic history. They had lost 500 ships in the transit, over 2 billion lives, but they had saved 6 billion more. It was a victory that felt like defeat. Vexatroth stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, staring at the view screen. His ancient eyes reflected the light of unfamiliar stars. In 12,000 years I have never witnessed anything like this. You saved us, Captain Kim. Your species saved us all. We did what needed to be done, Daewon replied. Nothing more. You did the impossible, Vexatroth corrected, and you made it look routine. That is the most frightening and wonderful thing about your species. You take impossibilities and turn them into procedures. You take death traps and call them shortcuts. Over the following weeks, the survivors established new colonies in the safe zones. The Void Swarm, following conventional routes, would take months to reach them, months to prepare, months to build defenses using the time and space that the black hole transit had bought them. The Council reformed on a new station, smaller and more humble than Viridian 7. At the first session, they voted unanimously to establish the Black Hole Transit Authority, with Captain Daewon Kim as its first administrator. But Daewon declined the promotion. He was a ship captain, not an administrator. Instead, he recommended Hana for the position. She accepted, though she complained that paperwork was far less interesting than breaking physics. The younger version of Daewon, the one who had not yet made the initial journey through Sagittarius Theta, decided not to make the trip. The timeline had changed. The mission was no longer necessary because it had already succeeded. Paradoxes wrapped around paradoxes. Somewhere in the multiverse, a version of Daewon made the journey and started everything. Here, in this timeline, that journey was simultaneously completed and never begun. Time travel, everyone agreed, was confusing. 6 months later, Daewon stood on the bridge of a new ship, watching another vessel prepare for black hole transit. The captain was not human. She was a young Solarian officer who had studied under Hana and learned to trust the math. Nervous? Daewon asked over the comm. Terrified, she replied honestly. But humans were terrified too, and you did it anyway. If you can defy death and physics, so can we. That is the spirit. See you on the other side. The Solarian ship entered the black hole smoothly, emerged safely, and sent back a triumphant transmission. Another successful transit. Another impossibility made routine. Daewon smiled. The galaxy was changing. Species that had accepted limitations for millennia were now questioning everything. Black holes were no longer feared as cosmic monsters. They were infrastructure, shortcuts, doorways to distant places. And it had all started because one species refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. Admiral Taemin appeared beside him, holding 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Daewon. You changed the galaxy, Captain. How does it feel? Strange, Daewon admitted. We just did what seemed necessary at the time. We did not set out to revolutionize physics or change how 1,000 species think about reality. We just needed to save some lives. That is what makes it remarkable, Taemin replied. You treated the impossible like a Tuesday. You looked at a black hole that killed billions throughout history and said, I bet we can use that. That is the most human thing I have ever heard. They stood together, watching ships come and go through the black hole transit routes. Each one was a testament to what could be achieved when you refused to accept no as a final answer. Day one thought about the journey that brought them here, the fear and the courage, the losses and the victories, the moment when they crossed the event horizon and survived something that should have killed them. Someone once told me that the only real limit is the one we place on ourselves, Daewon said quietly. Who told you that? Taimin asked. I did, or I will. Time travel makes grammar complicated. They finished their coffee in comfortable silence, watching humanity's impossible gift to the galaxy continue to unfold. The universe, it turned out, was far more flexible than anyone had imagined. You just had to be brave enough or crazy enough to test its limits, and humans had always been very good at both.